Hello everybody, it's your boy WEEZYFMAMBA and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you guys once again so much for being here. We really appreciate it. On today's video, we're gonna go ahead and rank the Friday the 13th film franchise. Ladies and gentlemen, we have about 6 days, I think, 5 days left of Friday the 13th, the game's lifespan. It has already been delisted as of last year, and the servers are getting cut in on the 31st. So it's a real sad time in the asymmetrical world for us right now. One of the originators of the asim style of game is officially dying on the 31st. Gun's first project, right, of the asim world. So it's bittersweet. Obviously it helped us out a lot, so we decided let's do some stuff Friday the 13th. In fact, the poll we did, we're going to start a new segment here on my channel, and I'm going to go through pretty much every single film franchise, horror film franchise, and we're going to rank these in a tier list, just like you saw previously last week with what we were doing with TCM the game. Let's do some film franchise because we did already TCM. Friday the 13th, iconic film franchise, 12 films to go over, and I've seen all of these hundreds of times. It's gonna be a fun one, guys, so let's get to it. Again, RIP F13 the game, and let's pop off. So NA is obviously, if I haven't seen it before, which is not a good thing, let's pop over here because we've seen them all. So I guess we're going to be going up from D all the way to Elite, and we'll start from there. We're going to start with, we're going to go backwards. I always like going backwards. It's a little bit different than starting with the first. The latest film in the franchise is the 2009 remake, and ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, contrary to a lot of stigmas around sequels, is that the more that you make, the more they suck. Reboots always are garbage. This reboot was flawless. The F13 2009 is elite to me. It is absolutely going to be an elite. It's one of my favorite films of the franchise. It's not my favorite, but it's one of my favorite films of the franchise. What they did with Jason, making him feel so frightening, the basement scenes, the looking for my sister character arc, the whole film was just so funny, and we really needed that campy style of horror, and it was just so well done. One of the best lines in the whole entire franchise. You guys know what line I'm talking about. Write down in the comment section if you guys can guess what line I'm talking about. The remake is easily one of the best reboots out of any film franchise. There's been so many bad reboots. This one was so well done, and I just gotta put it in elite to start it off. So yes, fantastic film. A lot of fun. Freddy versus Jason is gonna be the next one here. This one's kind of mid for me. It has one of the best kills in the franchise. The foldy bed, you guys know what I'm talking about. However, it still was, I just don't really understand why this was even made, dude. I mean, obviously we know it was made for money. To horror icon franchise, it's a lot of fun, but it's going in the middle of the pack for me. It's not horrible, but it's not great. It's B tier, okay? So again, just the story arc, the ending was really trash for me. I just didn't like the ending at all either. Jason X, again, the 10th one. Jason goes to space. On paper, this has to be a horrible film, right? Just awful. Not a chance, dude. Jason X easily is one of the best in the franchise. It's the first time that we kind of leave the campsite. We're going into space like every horror franchise did, you know, during the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. It was just sci-fi. Easily the absolute best kill in the franchise is in this film. Jason X, the what is it? Nitro I wanted to say nitroglycerin. But yeah, you guys, the face smash on the countertop, I think it is nitroglycerin. Let me get back to me on that, y'all. Just absolutely brutal kill. The robot with the nipples, I mean, come on, dude. Everything about this film was super fun. The gore, the kills, the storyline even was just a lot of fun. So truly enjoyed this film. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, part 9, the absolute worst film in the franchise, ladies and gentlemen. Jason Goes to Hell, Friday the 13th, part 9. What an abomination. What an abomination, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have much to say about this film. I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times, because the first time I saw it, it was terrible, and then it just so happened to be on TV or something. Everybody knows how poor this film was made. Just the evil entity, a blown up Jason, the plot, the characters, unlovable, unlikable, terrible movie. Terrible. If I could never watch this again, I would be totally okay. Moving on to part 8, and that's going right at the top of D tier because this is the bottom of D tier. Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Could have been easily the best film in the franchise. We had such just an incredible plot that would have been so well executed, and the whole entire film, Jason is not even in New York until the last 15 minutes of the movie. Also has one of the best kills in the game, but also the worst kill, or the worst scene in the history of the franchise, the reveal of Jason's face underneath the mask when he gets burned by the acid. I really do like the knock the block off kill when he punches the boxer's head off the ceiling, or off the roof. Great scene. A lot of fun on that one. But for the entire film being taken place on a boat, and you call it Jason Takes Manhattan, we get the one iconic scene of Times Square, and it's literally an hour and 40 minutes into the movie. I can't begin to tell you how bad this film is. You guys already know. If you've seen this, trash. Part 7, okay? Part 7 is going to go super mid, and I'll tell you why. One, it's got some points, and it's got some negative points. Part 7, I fucking love telekinetic style of sci-fi. I love telekinesis. I love reading on it in actual real life. It was very intriguing. The best Jason design, bar none. Has the best Jason design. Also, this is the first Kane Hodder film, right? The first Kane Hodder Jason, who ended up becoming Jason for the rest of the franchise, including into the video game, as well as he is Bubba right now, mocapping for TCM. Kane Hodder is a horror legend, so this was great. However, I believe this film came out in 1986, if I'm not mistaken. This was right when Ronald Reagan was in office, and he went psycho on everything: blood, guts, drugs, sex. You guys remember. In fact, I probably shouldn't blame Ronald. We should all blame Nancy for that, because she's dumb as hell. But we're not going to bring politics into this. Anyways, the reason why I brought that up is because part 7 was so cut from the MMRP, the AA, whatever, the rating system, that it eventually still gets a rated R rating, but it was PG-13 style of violence. The film had a lot of off-screen kills, hardly any blood, the least goriest film in the franchise, and that's saying something. And it just has a sour taste in my mouth. But again, the telekinesis storyline, as well as the best Jason design, it's got to get a couple of points. You know what I mean? So, part 7, C tier. Moving on to arguably one of the best. We're gonna have to make a big decision here. So this is going into a elite tier, and it's going above the remake because Jason Lives Part 6 is an iconic film. It brings us back to where Jason is back. If you guys don't remember, in Part 5, they didn't bring Jason back. They killed Jason off in Part 4 and then brought a copycat killer into Part 5, which we'll get to here in a minute. But bringing Jason back with the resurrection, the pole in the graveyard, the lightning strikes, you guys know the deal. There was a whole bunch of things that really made this movie so good. And it was obviously the resurrection of Jason, his new weapon, the giant spear. On top of that, the reintroduction of Tommy Jarvis, the adult Tommy Jarvis, who was played perfectly. And it's just, man, this movie was so fun. If you guys all know the paintball scene, it's hysterical. This movie is so funny. And on top of that, some of the best kills, man. And just understand, it's super good, man. Super good, okay? Moving on to Part 5, Roy, aka not Jason, fake Jason. You guys know the deal. Roy, Jason here, to me, is not a bad film. It's going to be C tier, but it's not as bad as people think, because remember, everybody gave this movie flack. Oh, no, Jason, worst movie in the franchise. If you watch this as a standalone film, or just don't have that connection or pull that you need it to be, you know, Jason Voorhees, it's a great standalone film. Truly, it is. And again, still having Tommy Jarvis and continuation of Part 4. Even as that, this kind of Part 5 of F-13 reminds me of Halloween 3, where Halloween 3 was no Michael Myers and everybody fucking hated it. But Halloween 3 is an awesome film by itself. Legitimate. So, again, good film, great kills, shears, garden shears, different weapon, was nice to get some change-ups. But fake Jason, again, still kind of mid, okay? Some of the acting was a little bit over the top. Yeah. This is where we have our dilemma. Part 4. Elite. Absolutely elite. Is Part 4 the best of all time? Is it better than Part 6? This is where I always have this conversation within myself of which one do I like more. But Part 4, the introduction of Tommy Jarvis, who so happens to be young Tommy Jarvis, who so happens to be just an incredible feat, man, of who we have on film. So again, I just love this film. The introduction of the pig splitter. We have Crispin Glover, who played Marty McFly's father in Back to the Future. Okay. Which is just great because it's bringing in some big name actors who had already done previous films. So it was great. Crispin Glover was huge at this time. And of course, with this place, you gotta understand some of the most iconic kills here, the machete slide on the floor. You also have man, dude, I'm just drawing a blank because it's so good. This movie was great. Again, we thought it was the final chapter. But man, yeah. Man, I'm just trying to think if I want this number 1 or number 2. But either way, we might have to come back to this here in just a second. Let's see. Okay, let's move on. Let's go. We'll come back to this. I might rearrange these, but we know where the other 3 are going to be going. And Part 3 is going to go into A tier, and it's going to go underneath Jason X, simply because I think Jason X is a better film. But Part 3 is iconic. It's 3D. the introduction of Shelly and Fox and the gang, but also the introduction of the hockey mask. Not a lot of people know this because they haven't really gone back far enough to understand, but Jason in part 1 and part 2, well, let me rephrase that. Part 1 and part 2 of Friday the 13th did not have a hockey mask. In fact, this was the iconic scene where Shelly actually gives Jason his hockey mask. It obviously, the first film he wasn't even the killer, and then part 2 he had the potato sack. It has to get points just for the hockey mask alone. Other than that, it's an okay film. It's an okay film. The iconic scenes of the boat scene, man. The boat scene's so good in this. When you're seeing Jason pop out of that door at the top, she's at the water, and then the jump scare, your typical jump scare. Super good. Real quick, let's go back to F-13. I forgot to mention that obviously with Crispin Glover, we really have to also mention young Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman ended up becoming a huge actor. Lost Boys, Donatello in the Ninja Turtles. He obviously played, and man, Stand By Me. There we go. Goodness gracious almighty. So he ended up becoming a much larger actor, and of course, he really, really helped sell this film, young Tommy Jarvis. So F-13, I just got to put part 6 in. Part 6, the return was so hype. Part 6 takes the cake. Part 2, Potato Sack Jason, the introduction of Packanack Lodge. Love this film. This is also A tier for me, and it's going above part 2 or part 3, simply because the lodge, the potato sack, the slower style of Jason, the sheer horror of crashing through windows. And this is the first introduction of Jason to us, because we had young, drowned Jason in the first film. The first real introduction of adult Jason is iconic to me. The wheelchair scene on the staircase. There's so many kills that stand out here. It's just a classic film. Okay, loved it. Absolutely A tier. And then the final film in the franchise will be the first film that we're going to rank here, and this is going into B tier. And I'll tell you why. In fact, it's going a little bit lower. There's a lot of things wrong with this movie. And believe it or not, this is one of those rare incidents, rare franchises, right? Where the first film is not the best. If you go and talk about other horror franchises, most of the time, that first movie is going to be the best. Take The Exorcist, for example. Every Exorcist sequel since has been an absolute abomination. And I'm telling you, this is one of those rare occasions where the first film is one of the weaker ones. It's not the best. It's pretty middle of the pack for me, simply because it still is iconic. The introduction of the franchise, 1980, ladies and gentlemen, 1980. And the super, super duper twist at the end that Pamela Voorhees is actually the killer. This is always a great starting trivia question that a lot of people get wrong. Who's the killer in Friday the 13th? Everybody says Jason, but it's not. It's Pamela. And so it's great. It's a great film. There is some stuff wrong with it. The lighting. Obviously, this was made on a ridiculously low budget. I think under $200,000, if I'm not mistaken. And so you got to take what you get, right? You got to expect it to be low quality, which it was. The lighting was really hard to see in this movie. The drowning out screams were a little bit over the top for me. But again, the origin story, right? So it's got points. Let's get points for that. Friday the 13th, the OG, man. That's the list, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. I would love to hear your opinions. What do you put first? What do you put last? And of course, be on the lookout for more tier lists. We will be doing more franchises. We're going to get through them all. We're going to start another poll probably sometime next week. And maybe once a week we'll get these out or something. Okay. Horror franchises, we'll start there. And then maybe we go into action or sci-fi or something too. I don't know. I really, really like doing these tier list videos. So perfect. That's it. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, drop a like on the video, and turn on that notification bell. That way you guys get notified every time I go live here on YouTube, over on Twitch, and anytime that I bring you brand new horror related content. I love you guys very much, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace out.